it was obviously really scary because I'm like, okay, I'd never done it before. Like I've been so successful online, people show up, but I'm like, in person's different, right? Like you gotta have people flying to come see you.
Welcome to the Speaking for Profit podcast, where we talk about monetizing your message, securing the bag, and really creating a brand that you are excited to live in and work on. I'm really pumped about today's conversation with one of my good friends, Sabah Ali. And today we're going to talk to y'all about a little bit about branding, but also if you're interested in putting on your first in-person event, what are things that you can do to make sure it's successful? And I'm not talking about just getting butts in the seats, but really making sure that your community has an experience where they feel uplifted, where they feel empowered, and where they feel dedicated to the mission. And I'm thankful, y'all. I got to actually go to Sabah's first in-person event. So we're going to have a conversation where it's going to be about, yes, how Sabah planned this event, but also how did I feel as a participant and some of the highlights from that amazing experience together. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please go on and subscribe and give us a review. And if you are watching on YouTube, we would love to hear about some of your thoughts in the comments. So feel free to engage and be a part of this conversation. So I'm going to bring my good friend Sabah to the stage. Sabah, welcome to the Speaking for Profit podcast. Thank you so
Hello.
much for being here.
I am so pumped, so excited to do this. This is my first podcast interview for the year. So I'm just so happy to be here with you today, of all of it.
I'm glad we are doing that together. The first one, it makes me feel really good about that. And for folks who have not checked it out, Sabah has been on this podcast before. So if you want to go listen to that episode, please just, search Sabah Ali under the Speaking for Profit podcast. You definitely will see that we talked a lot about TED Talks and some of Sabah's journey becoming just, I feel like, the top branding queen in the world. I'm just going to coin you as
Yes.
that, Sabah.
I
So
love it.
go
I'll
back.
take it.
Exactly, right? So if you want more of like the introduction of who Sabah is, that's a perfect interview. We're not going to go into that as deep today, but Sabah,
Yeah.
just for people to know, how do you right now help your clients and what brings you the most joy about your current process of working with folks?
Yeah, for me, I want to say the most rewarding thing that I do with my clients is them finally understanding and almost accepting that their business is basically them, right? It's like they don't ever have to like curate or develop anything when it comes to their brand or even their marketing, because I want to say the majority of my clients, they're front facing in their business, meaning they're like a coach, they're a consultant, maybe like an author, a speaker, and they have built their business around a past or prior experience that they have gone through, right? And now they're like, the badass expert in that specific industry. So for me, when I can see my clients get it in terms of they are their business, that's like the most rewarding thing, because also it's kind of like a weight lifted off of our shoulders, because now when we show up in our business, like we don't have to act a certain way. We're just us, right? So for me, it's just been so amazing to see my clients like have that breakthrough. And of course, for me, that's how I also got started, was just basically me being myself on social media, and that's how I built my brand.
Yeah, and you just give us so much authenticity, Sabah, but you also, what I appreciate about your content and what I'm kind of taking from it is it's authenticity, but it's also a sense of boundaries. And I think that
Yeah.
that's important when we are ourselves, right? So I know one thing that you spoke about at your in-person event was like, you don't have to share it all. Like, what are your
Yeah.
pillars? What are the things that you're going to share on a consistent basis? But it needs to be you. And I love that you always tap into that. I just think that it's so important for our growth as business owners. So for you, you've been in business for a while. Like you've been doing this for a long time. And I know you've probably
Yeah.
seen the ebbs and flows of online coaching, brand ambassador type of businesses. What's your word for the year? What do you think this year is going to be like for us folks who are online? What word are you using to describe this year in 2024?
I mean, so I'll use two, because I have like my word for the year, and like my word for the year is faith. So just like placing so much faith in everything that I'm doing. But I want to say in terms of like, once again, this is gonna sound so biased, But, like, in terms of the industry and, like, the online space, to be honest, I truly do believe the word of the year is brand. And the reason why I say that is because it was so funny the other day. I was looking at my Facebook memories, and I saw a Facebook Live I did back in, like, 2020 about why personal branding is so important and how people won't see the importance of it until a few years from now. And now when I look on my feed, I actually see people talking about like brand is so important. Like you have to build your brand. And I think the reason why, especially this year, it's such a big focus is because since like COVID in 2020, when there was like the big boom of everybody on social media and like TikTok, Instagram, like all of the things, people start to realize like that is how you get attention. Like, of course, it's on social media, but not just with your business, with who you actually are as a person. Right. So I want to say since like 2020, 2021, 2022, of course, like last year, I start to see people really place more focus with their brand. But I feel like now this year, it's like, okay, we know brand is important. How can we now put ourselves out there even more? So to be honest, like that's where I really see like the big demand and like the big kind of shift in the industry this year is people really doubling down with their brand. That means more content creation, more visibility, more doing podcast shows and interviews like this, just so people really not just get to know our business, but really get to know us.
Yeah, so we can build, right, like that know, like, and trust that you talk about, right? Because in order for people to invest in you, and not just money, y'all, I really want us to think about people are investing money, but they're investing their most valuable resource, which is their time.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we're at that point, right, where people are like, "I don't wanna waste my time." I done taken courses, I done work with coaches where I felt like I wasted my time. Maybe it's not that I didn't get it, but I could have gotten it faster. People have to trust you. So, tell our audience what is brand, right? Because we hear this often. Like, give it
Yeah.
to us at the, like, 2nd grade level. What exactly is brand? Because, there's marketing, there's sales, there's KPIs, there's just all this language, and I love to give folks the basics so that they can know what they're trying to drive and what they're trying to create.
Yeah. Brand is basically making people feel happy, excited, confident, sexy, whatever that feeling is. So anytime someone asks me that question, I'm like, how do you make people feel? Right? It's all about the feeling and experience you're creating for your consumer. So even think about like your favorite stores that you shop at when you walk into that store, like you feel a certain way. I remember in high school, me and my friends would always go into like Hollister and Abercrombie and Fitch because like that perfume smell, it was like, oh, we feel
Yep.
like we're, in California, right? We're like Cali girls. And I'm like from a small town from Iowa. So like for us to go in that store and have that feeling and experience, it's like we wanted to feel like we were in California. That was like the vibe we always got. So anytime people talk about branding or even think about it, I'm like, yes, of course, external branding with colors, logos, all of that, it matters because it does, it does create the same like effect that you want as if you're thinking about what type of feeling you want to create. But I'm like, if you can evoke an emotion with your audience when they come across your post or when they come across a video, it is much more likely they're going to want to keep watching, right? Even think about when you're making friends with somebody, when you're out at a party, a bar, a conference, anything, and you meet somebody, the reason why you like them is because the way they made you feel. Right. So if we can
Mm,
create that same type of effect with our audience, guess what? They're always going to want to stay and they're always going to want to follow.
I love that. I was watching a interview yesterday with Oprah and Fantasia because they were talking about The Color Purple, and I was really
Yes.
just thinking about. Did you see it? Did you go see the film?
I want to see it so badly. Yeah.
Yes, please make sure you go. But Oprah just has such a powerful brand, right? And
Mhm.
I'm watching this interview between them two, and I have this thing where when I'm really in a conversation with folks, I go, "Mhm." And it's something I've been trying to really, like, not do. And then I was watching the interview with Oprah, and I was like, "Oprah been interviewing people for, like, 50 years and still is mhm." But what I was realizing was based off of what you're saying today, Oprah wants you to feel as though you're in the interview seat as well, right? So, what would it be like for her not to be authentic and not to have a voice and not to be a part of it and really in that moment? And the
Yeah.
emotionality that she's able to take the interviewee down is because she's so present. but that's so on brand with her
Mm.
as Oprah, right? Like, we don't expect this like far away. We expect her to be leading in. We expect her to be
Right.
hugging people. We expect her to cry. Like, these are expectations. We expect her to randomly sing, but it's so on brand. It's so on brand for her. So thanks for just like giving us that highlight on that. When you are working with folks, and I want to go a little bit into your IP. You share as much as you want, but how do we look at like our brand pillars? Because that was something that I have to admit, when I learned from you, Saba, I was like, oh my goodness, boop. I had so much
Yeah.
more clarity around
Yeah.
not just like marketing, but really how do I show people more of who I am? But
Yeah.
yeah, can you share a little bit with us about your brand pillars and how you break that down to your current clients?
Yeah, for sure. So I always say like branding, it's like a combination of like four things. So the first thing is all about brand identity. And the easiest way to explain is basically who you are and what you do and what you help people with, right? So that's pretty simple, right? If you're someone who helps people in their relationship, like that's basically your brand. You're helping people better their relationships. Maybe you love playing soccer, right? And you want to help someone become like the top soccer player in like their high school or something. Like that is basically what your brand is, who you are, what you do, what you help people with. Right. Now, the second thing is brand association. Now, this is basically other things that people associate your brand with. Now, this can be literally anything. It can be objects, it can be feelings, it can be words, it can be actions, right? So, something that I always talk about, like on my stories and my posts, is of course like my brand unforgettable. Like you can see it right here. So anytime anybody sees that word, they will associate that word with me because that's of course my brand. Another thing can potentially be I work out, right? I work out. I like to move my body. I usually do it every morning, whether it's stretching, weight training, yoga, anything. So when people see me doing that consistently, they know that I'm disciplined, right? That's another association that I create. Now, if I didn't show that on my social media, guess what? They might not think that I'm like disciplined, but that's like a key factor that I want my ideal clients to have as well. Right. So association, that is just so important. Also with people that you're doing interviews and podcast shows with. That's also where like PR marketing kind of comes into play too. When you associate yourself with bigger name people, with people that are doing big things in the industry, then that's where people are like, oh, like she's with them. That probably means she's more important. Right. And of
Mm.
course, like when I say it that way, it kind of sounds like, oh, like popularity, but like that's how people think, right? If you are featured in a specific publication, I will tell you, you will get more eyeballs, right? So brand association. And then we also have like brand perception that goes along with association. Now, perception is basically like it's very controllable. People think when people say like perception is reality, that's like the biggest bullshit ever because you can control how people perceive you. Now, one big thing that sometimes my clients come to me and say is, I feel like my audience just thinks I'm friends with them. Like they don't actually see me as somebody that they can learn from and they will actually pay me money. Right. So there might be certain things that you're saying in your content where you might be sharing too much. Maybe you're gossiping, right? Maybe you're just seeking attention, but you're not actually positioning yourself as a real leader, right? So they're perceiving you more as somebody who's just like inspirational versus like someone they can actually work with. Right. So perception, that is something that I see a lot of people needing to tweak when it comes to their brand. So they actually do position themselves as a real business owner people want to work with. And then the final thing, it's more so the process that you go through to have the right perception on your brand, and that's brand positioning, right? So that basically brand positioning is kind of like rebranding your business if you feel like what you are doing doesn't match the type of people you're attracting. And that's where we go back to the drawing board and really look at if your messaging is aligned with the type of people you want to be attracting. So all in all, like in like a nutshell, that's what branding is. When you know exactly what your brand is and how you want to be perceived, it's going to be so much easier for you to grow like your business or whatever your main goal is with your brand.
Attention public speakers, coaches, and consultants. Ever dreamt of booking 5-figure speaking and consulting contracts? In just 5 days, I'm teaching my tried and tested system to elevate your speaking and consulting business. Forget the cold emails, bypass the salesy pitches. This challenge is about building genuine high value connections. And here's a promise I have for you. With a commitment of just 1 to 2 hours a day for 5 days, you're going to witness transformative results. On day 1, you'll learn how to craft a business strategy without cold emails or paying to speak. Day 2 is all about you redefining your profile to attract decision makers ready to invest in your expertise. By day 3, you'll have your very own 5-figure sales system to turn contacts into clients. By day 4, we will have you automating your funnel with proven templates and scripts. And day 5, I'm going to teach you how to master the art of discovery calls with a step-by-step checklist and exclusive 5-figure sales secrets. Whether you're just stepping onto the speaking scene or you're a seasoned pro, this challenge is tailor-made for you. And I'm going to teach you the exact strategies that have helped me help my clients make over $2 million in the last 2 years. The journey to a thriving 5-figure speaking and consulting business begins with this challenge. So are you ready to redefine your limits, accelerate your growth, and bask in the limelight of your success? I want you to join the 5 days to 5-figure speaking challenge now. Let's rewrite your success story together. Simply head over to speakingforprofit.com. You're going to click that button that says 5 days to 5-figure speaking gigs so you can get started with the challenge. Can't wait to see you there. All right, now back to the show. I hope y'all got y'all notebooks out.
I know that's a
lot. And if not, you better go back and rewind to get the notebook out, right? Like that opened up so much clarity for me. And, at the in-person event, we got to put it into action and actually record some things. And it was the first time, believe it or not, Sabah, that I went to an in-person event and we implemented, right? Like, and I was
love
like,
hearing that. I love
why
hearing
are
that
more
so
people
much.
not having us implement in the moment? Like they're just like, go talk to people in a circle about it. And then that's cool, right? You get to like process it with others, but actually getting into action gave me something to come back home with, right? Which was really, really powerful. So you're working with folks on their brand. You feel like that's what 2024 is all about. Personally, for you as a business owner, I've seen you grow so much since we were together in 7-Figure CEO. And a lot of people, Saba, look at growth as financial, and I know you've grown financially. I mean, I see you with the Tesla. I see you outside. I see you looking, I see you. But what I've seen is you grow a sense of easefulness, right? And you talked about the process of when you decided, hey, I'm not going to be stressed out on these sales calls. I'm going to actually sell one to many, and that you are able to see more ease in your life and more profit. So I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about when you made that decision and what is the process of moving from being on sales calls every day to having a business where you can have more ease and sell one to many.
I love this question because I can like literally vividly remember exactly when I just knew I had to shift my business. And this was back in it was the end of 2021. It was around like October, November. I was doing a really big like marketing campaign in my business. I was doing like a 5-day challenge, and that's where I had like my entire team. Like I had like my sales team, like my setter, my closer, blah, 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 all of this. And we had a very successful event. But I remember midway through the event, one of my main sales guys just like disappeared. Like he was not answering, he wasn't showing up. He basically went MIA. And up until then, like everything was like perfect. We had, conversations. I would always check in with my team members how they're doing. And suddenly he just like literally went MIA. Until this day, I never got on a call with him because he never wanted to. And what happened was at the end of those 5 days, I realized that he basically just took a lot of what he learned working with me for the past like 9 months prior and started his own business. That's what I found out later on. But number 2, I realized that I was building my business in a way that I never wanted to. And it was basically the very like number masculine, like hands-on approach that I was like, this just like doesn't even feel good. And that was probably one of the lowest points in my business because like literally my sales team like disappeared probably like a month after one of my assistant sales coaches left or coaches left. And then I just felt like I wanted to burn my business to the ground. Like I didn't even want to, like it came to a point where I didn't even know how to move forward because that's all I knew. Like I built my business to a point where it was so successful doing it this way. But I'm like, if I continue on, I just know I'm not going to want to be in business anymore. So after that point, at the end of 2021, I remember I was following a coach for quite some time, and her entire business model was like she had never done a sales call. She now has built a multi eight-figure business. And I had never hired a very feminine coach before. Up until then, I only had like male coaches, to be honest. So I remember I just like had this like moment to myself. I'm like, if I want a business where I don't have to do sales calls, people hire me through like the DMs, I have to learn how to do that. And I also have to take the action to do that. So I remember I messaged this coach and I'm like, hey, like, I think I want to work with you one on one for like at least 3 months. What's the investment? And she was like, oh, sure. It's $34,000 to work with me and you have to pay in full. I'm like,
Whoa.
oh, okay. And I thought about it for a moment. The day after I transferred over $34,000, and I kid you not, it was like 4 back and forth messages. I had never talked to her before, but I had followed her stuff for quite some time that I'm like, I just know I need to work with her. So ever since then, just by first of all taking the action of me doing it, I was the consumer in that transaction. So I'm like, okay, if I want people to do that with me, I have to do it first because that's how I roll. I'm like, I'm never gonna practice. I'm never gonna preach something I don't practice. So after doing that, I did take a cut in my business because things were slow for quite like I want to say for like 3 to 6 months because I wasn't doing sales calls. I had to completely change my business. But from there, I started to train my audience to buy from me in a certain way. And I think that's the key takeaway here is if you want your audience to do something, you have to train them to do it. Up until then, my audience was trained to buy from me on a sales call. I had to start to create more content, shift my messaging so that way they didn't need to get on a call with me. So now I haven't done a sales call in probably like, yeah, like 2 years ever since that change and since that tweak.
Congratulations, and I'm so happy you didn't burn your business down because
I know.
we need this unforgettable brand, you gave us the T-shirts at the in-person event, and then we're gonna
Yeah,
go into it because I know people are like, "Y'all talking about this event, like, tell us more,"
I
right?
know.
But anytime I wear that T-shirt, I feel connected to you, but I
I
always
love
get
that.
compliments on it, which is just
I
such a
love
beautiful
that.
thing,
Yeah.
and it's very comfy too, like, which is the
Good.
experience that you're giving all of us. So I'm thankful that you found that coach, but also that it seems like you found yourself, Saba, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, the coach that we learned from nearly burnt down his business and had to restart, right? So it's
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
interesting what you learn from others,
Mhm.
and how you have to relearn what's really for you in business. And I find that same thing even happens in like academia. I remember being in
Yeah.
college and having to digest things and then actually utilize it the way that I want to utilize it in my own community. So it's just a skill set that I think that you're really great at. So let's talk about this in-person event.
Yes.
One, when did this masterful event come to mind, and what was your strategy on actually implementing it? Because I know I talked to many clients, even myself. I'm like, I'm doing an in-person event this year. And then I get really scared about it. And then I'm like, no, you got to do
Mhm.
it. So I'm just
Mhm.
gonna put the sales page up and I'm like, okay, then I'm gonna go for it. Right. But for you, what
Mhm.
was that moment where you decided, hey, I want to meet my clients in person?
Mhm. I've had the vision of creating an event before I ever even had a brand and before I ever even had a business because if people have been following me for a while or they know my story, I actually got started with my brand and business by helping somebody else put on events. So the first few years of me like being an entrepreneur, being like in this industry, I was helping one of my old mentors put on events and I saw how transformational they were. Right? It's like I remember skipping classes like my last year of college, borrowing money from my friends to attend events, all across the US because of how transformational they were. So for me, I just knew, just like what you said, I always like put it off. When I first moved to Florida in 2020, of course, COVID happened, everything shut down. I couldn't do it. 2021, I was growing my business, burn it to the ground type of thing. And then 2022 is kind of like rebuilding back my business. So 2023, I'm like, you know what? I like need to do this event. So I kid you not, it was probably around like a year ago. I think it was January, February of last year. I remember I was on the phone with one of my good friends. She was also an entrepreneur. And I was telling her, I'm like, one of my goals this year is I want to do an event. I don't know how it's going to look like. I don't know if it's going to be more of like a retreat, a VIP weekend, a bigger event. Like, who knows? I just know I want to do it. And she's like, Saba, like I've known you for so long. And I know you're the type of person where if you just like take action on it, like you're gonna figure it out. I feel like my entire like business is like, let me just first take the first step and then everything else I'll figure out. Because if I do the first step, then it's like shit. I'm kind of already committed to doing it. So, knowing me, what I did was after I had that conversation that week, I started to look at venues here in Florida to just see where I would maybe want to do it. Once again, I didn't really know exactly what it was going to look like, but I started to look at venues and I started to reach out to them. A week later, I went to go look at one of the venues, which was the Hyatt Centric in Fort Lauderdale. I fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the room. And I remember I brought my boyfriend, Andy. I'm like, I think this is the place I want to do it. He's like, wait, like, do you even know like what the event is? I'm like, no, not really. And within a week, I had contracted and put down a deposit for that
Wow.
venue. So that was kind of like the beginning story of how it happened.
So you put down the deposit and you had no idea the event name,
No,
anything.
no,
Whoa. Yeah,
no.
imperfect action, big time. Big time.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it was obviously really scary because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, I'd never done it before." Like, I've been so successful online, people show up, but I'm like, in person's different, right? Like, you gotta have people flying to come see you, right? And, like, yes, I have a local network, but not that many people. But I did the deposit, contracted the venue, and then, of course, I'm like, "Okay, how can I make this not just an event, but an experience?" Right? I want people to really feel like they need to be there. So, I'm like, "What can I do that's different?" I decide to create a promo video. So, I remember the first time when we actually went to go look at the venue, I already knew I wanted to document it, so I had Andy kind of, like, video the whole thing. Unfortunately, the footage didn't come out that well, so we had to go back and do it. So I remember we took a day, and I'll never forget this day. We took a full day to go to the venue and just like record content, videos, shoot it all. And I remember it was such a tight window because I wanted to launch tickets on like a specific day, and we shot all of the footage on Friday. I couldn't find a editor. I know. I just like saw your face. I couldn't find an editor to edit it. So I spent 2 full days the entire weekend editing that video. It was only like I think it was like I can't even remember, like a 3-minute video, but it took over like 20 hours because I wanted to look like it was literally a commercial, and it turned out so, so good.
You edited that video?
I edited that video.
Whoa, Saba, you got skills we don't know about.
I
Okay.
know. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because like, I wanted to do things differently. Like, I had never seen anybody do, like, a commercial like that for an event. Like, I've seen people do just, like, videos, but nothing to that extent. I wanted people to really feel what it would feel like being there. So I launched, tickets, and I remember that day when I launched, I had a full body, like, panic attack. I'm like, "Did I really just do this? Like, what if people don't buy?" Like, I went through what I really did not wanna go through, which is the fear piece of it. But I also knew it was normal and I knew it was gonna happen. So I kinda just let my body feel through it for, like, the first few days, and within a week, I had 3 people buy tickets to attend. So it was,
Yes.
like,
So
just
you knew you weren't gonna be alone at the venue.
yeah, I knew I wasn't gonna be alone, which is amazing, and it was funny because the first person who bought was also somebody who came from out of the country. So I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, "Okay, like, I got this, I got this." So yeah, I wanna say, like, after the first like month or two putting it together, starting to launch tickets, after that it became much like simpler to promote it. And like the fear also kind of just like disappeared.
That is really cool. I'm so proud of you. Like
Thank
that those are
you.
big moves. Like you really like you're intentional, but you also aren't willing to like, give up, right? Because some
Yeah.
people have been like, "You know what? I can't find an editor. Forget this. Like, we just go
Yeah.
this is a sign. We're not supposed to do this event." But you just kept going. So, you got the venue, you started promoting it. How did you decide what you wanted to teach that weekend and
Mm,
what kind of like because, right, there's one thing about the venue, the food, the
yeah.
place, but there's another thing about, like, what are people gonna learn? How am I gonna,
Yeah.
like, divide time between learning and implementation? Like,
Yeah.
how did you decide on some of that? Was it just all you? Did you have a team? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Absolutely. So since I had attended so many events prior to this, there was like two style of events that I always went to. It was like the big events with like all the speakers, and then it was like very intimate mastermind style. And for me, every time I went to an event and I talked to people at those events, something they always said was like, I have so much information, but like I feel like I can't implement it now, or it's like too much. Like I feel like I still don't know what to do with my business. So I'm like, for me, I really wanted to craft an experience where people could actually implement what they were learning and it wasn't like too much. Right. So for me, I'm like, okay, I want people to actually once again like really understand what their brand is and how to market it. So that was like the main focus for that weekend was to go through and for them to really understand how to do it. And that's where also I didn't want like my first event, I didn't want hundreds of people there. I wanted to be intimate. So that way everybody in the room felt like they had the opportunity to speak, to ask questions, to interact, to come up like, in front of the room and do all of that. So yeah, I mean, like it was, I feel like before I ever even once again like thought about doing the event, if I was going to do an event like that versus like a retreat, I knew I wanted to do it that way in that style because of how yeah, because of how people can really just like implement and get shit done that weekend and not feel like, oh, now I have to do all of this work, kind of like going back home at the end of the event.
That's such a good idea too, right? Like, really deciding what kind of outcome you want people to have, y'all. Get your notebooks. If your notebooks is not out, y'all, write this down, right? We really want to decide for ourselves what type of outcome we want from that experience for folks, not just what we want them to learn, which is super
Mhm.
powerful. Now, the one thing I was surprised about was you had an opportunity to kind of gamify it, right? Where you had awards. Yeah,
Yes.
I won an award. Wait, do I have it? Do I have it up here? I probably
Evolve won the best award. Yeah. She won the Unforgettable Brand Award, which was our biggest award there. Yeah, and I honestly I loved that. Like I wanted to go over the top for this event. Like that's me, that's my brand. So I'm like, of course I'm gonna give out awards. And it was just like it was a fun experience because of course the Unforgettable Brand Award that was given to you Evolve at the end of day two. But day one, like we did the red carpet thing. So I really wanted people to feel like they knew each other. So that's where we did the most creative business and most like unique story for day one. So people really felt like they got to know everybody before that. And that was, yeah, that was just like a cool touch. And I'm like, I know next time, like I feel like all my future events, I'm definitely gonna do that at all of them.
People just love to win things, and I think
Yeah.
when you gamify it,
Yeah.
they're more intentional about it. So the fact that we kinda had an opportunity to communicate with one another, network, and then we're, like, kinda put on the spot, like, "What did you learn? Who'd you learn the most from?" We
Yeah.
already knew the people we wanted to vote on, and I was honestly so surprised about winning the award, but I was so thankful because I felt like I had a like, really good conversations with people at that event, where
Yeah.
normally when I go to in-person events, I can feel a little introverted, even though I'm a speaker and a
Yeah. I
consultant,
feel that. I feel
it's
that.
it's
Yeah.
a different kinda side of me, so being in that all day, I'm like, "I'm exhausted, this is too
Yeah.
many people." I start feeling like, subconscious. I go to my room, I'm like, "I'm outta here." I
Yeah.
was like I was running up to my room to go get maybe a sweater and then wanting to get back and not miss anything
I
at
love
that
that.
event, right? Which was a totally different experience, and I love that it was intimate. It wasn't, like, extremely long, right? But it
Mhm.
wasn't also short. It gave us just enough amount of time. And also, you were just an amazing host. And I really appreciate that you led the event. I go to so many events and the person who's on the flyer doesn't even barely show up, or they show
Mhm.
up midday after someone else has been screaming and telling you to dance around for 2 hours. It's like it's
I
like
love
Saba
that.
is here. Saba's here at the registration table. Like,
Oh,
we can talk
yeah.
to Saba. It didn't
Yeah.
feel like, oh, I'm Hollywood
Yeah.
and you don't have access to me. So what I did also notice is that you documented the event as well. You had people there to be able to support you, to document us, and to do all of that. Um, what's the plan with some of that footage? Are we gonna have a part 2 of this experience? Like, can you share that with us
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah. Oh
Because
my gosh.
I just
Yeah.
get really excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just be so honest. We have so much footage, and I got so busy the second, like after the event, because my event was in October with like holidays traveling. We got so busy. But right now we're in the works of creating the vlog for the event. We have like once again, we have so much footage. And after looking at some of it, I was just gathering a lot of it just last week and looking back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just so amazing to like relive it again because I start to document it once again the day of when I looked at that venue. And that's like a key thing that I want everybody to do is document everything. Like everything. Not only is it a great thing to do with your brand, but looking back at it, I'm like, it just like I get to relive it all over again. So yes, there is a vlog coming because we have so much footage. But then also as I sift through the footage, we recorded the entire day, right? So I'll probably take snippets, turn it into like videos, reels, a lot of it too. I now use in like B-roll background video in my YouTube videos, things that I can use in the future for future events. We also got testimonials throughout the day. So I'm like, yeah, we have a lot of footage that we're going to be using in the future. But yeah, the main thing right now is like getting that vlog done and putting it out there because I'm like, I really want people to feel and experience all of it because there are some moments in there where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is this gonna work out? Is like shit gonna hit the fan? But it all worked out. So I'm like, yeah, that's like the main thing that we're trying to just like get out there now is that vlog.
That's gonna be really good because y'all, when y'all see this vlog, y'all gonna have FOMO. Like, y'all gonna
I
have it.
know.
People gonna be hitting you up in the DM. So I'm like, when is the next event? How do
Yeah.
I get there? How do I show up? So that's really exciting. So tell our audience, right? Like, how can they work with you? What's the quickest way to get into your incubator and be able to be supported with their branding and ultimately monetizing their message, right? Because that's what folks are here to do. So how can they support you and get into working with you?
Yeah. The very best place is my membership, Monetize Social membership. And that community, the reason why I created it was because I really want to help people define who they are with their business and with their brand. And within that membership, I give you honestly everything you need to figure out what your brand is and to monetize it. Something that I always tell people in my audience, my clients in that membership is simple actions lead to daily transactions, no matter where you're at in your business, because we have people in that membership that are just starting their business and people that are making multi seven figures in that membership. And they are going through the content to refine their marketing and their branding. So if you're somebody who's like, okay, I know I want to build my brand this year, but I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with what to create content on, how to market myself, that's the perfect place to be to learn how to do all of that.
Y'all make sure y'all join. I joined during Black Friday. I'm not in
Yeah,
it right now, but I probably will come back. And I went through
yeah,
that master class and I made some sales, Saba. Like, I
yeah,
mean, I already had like a little bit of a framework, but I was like,
yeah.
ooh. And I didn't even have to come on video. And I was like, oh, I can make a little money from the DMs. It was great.
Mhm.
So
I
thank
love
you. And I
that.
appreciated all the Q&As that you did during that time too, so we could get more clarity. But
Yeah.
y'all, when I tell y'all this membership, the pricing, when you see the pricing and then you see the actual things that are in there, it's like, Saba, what are you doing? You just giving all this away. Like, it should
Yeah.
be triple the cost, but the investment is just so powerful. So y'all, so we're gonna put that in the show notes so that you have an opportunity to check it out. We'll also put Saba's YouTube in there as well so
Yeah.
that you can enjoy some Sundays with Saba. There's always some really good information there. And I just want to thank you for being here and always showing up for Speaking for Profit. We really appreciate you. We consider you family. And
I
I
love
hope that
that.
2024 is so abundant for you because you deserve it all and that you continue to build an unforgettable brand.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I always love doing this with you, Evolve. And I feel like every time I talk to you, I just like I feel like we get each other. Like we're on the same like vibe, we're on the same vision, we're on the same mission. So I just like I always appreciate you wanting to have me on your podcast for your audience and everything like that because as we build, I just always love to stay connected with people who are on the same vision, on the same mission and just doing big things. So, thank you so much for having me again.
No problem. All right, y'all. Until next time, peace.
Bye.